Hello, and a very, very warm welcome to the Ataxia Comunidad channel.
Yes, welcome everyone.
Whether you're, getting ready for the day right now, or maybe you're just winding down in the evening, we are incredibly honored to have you with us today.
We really are. It's great to be here.
So today we're doing a deep dive into something really special. It's part of the series called La Importancia de, which is just fantastic.
Oh, it's brilliant. This is episode 3, right?
Exactly, episode 3. And this specific one is titled Del ritmo de vida. So basically, on the rhythm of life.
And, before we jump in, we really should establish where this material comes from, because it's so unique.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. We are analyzing the educational series, La Enfermedad desde dentro.
Which translates to, the disease from within.
Yeah, and it was produced by Paco Oliva, specifically for Ataxia Comunidad. And what makes Paco Oliva's series stand out so much isn't just the clinical data.
No, not at all. It's the perspective.
Exactly. It's the fact that he's actually living it. Like, this material is completely unprecedented because it's told from the inside.
Right, in the first person.
Right.
He utilizes these incredible, real patient testimonies.
And Paco himself is a patient. He's one of the affected. So, this isn't some researcher looking at patients through a two-way mirror, taking notes on their gait.
Yeah, it's real peer-to-peer survival strategy. It's deeply practical.
It really is. And, because you, our listener, are a habitual listener of Ataxia Comunidad, we're going to treat you with the respect of an advanced audience today.
Right, we're definitely skipping the basic definitions today. You already know what ataxia is.
Exactly. You live the clinical reality. So our mission today is just to bypass the textbooks and dive straight into the deep end of daily functional treatment.
Which means we are talking about managing your rhythm of life.
Yeah. And why managing this rhythm is, honestly, a strict neurological necessity. It's not just some, trendy wellness suggestion.
It is absolute biology. But to really get into it, we need a good way to visualize what this neurological necessity actually feels like.
Oh, I've got one.
Yeah.
So I want you to imagine, just for a moment, that you are behind the wheel of a car.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
But this is not the car you were used to driving. Sometime in the middle of the night, a mechanic broke in.
Yeah.
And just completely ripped out the automatic transmission.
Oh, wow. Just gone.
Totally gone. The power steering has been disconnected, the traction control, the anti-lock brakes.
All the automatic stuff.
Yeah, the electronic stability program.
Mm-hmm.
All of those brilliant, invisible systems that automatically keep the vehicle gliding down the highway without you having to dedicate a single conscious thought to them. They are all gone.
So you are left holding a steering wheel that suddenly feels like it weighs, what, 100 pounds?
Easily. And you're staring at a clutch and a stick shift that you now have to manage entirely on your own.
That sounds exhausting. It goes beyond just knowing how to drive a stick shift, right?
Oh, completely. You have to manually calculate the exact RPMs for every single gear shift in your head.
Yeah.
You have to physically, with pure brute force, muscle the steering wheel through every slight curve.
Because there's no power assist anymore.
Right. And you have to actively balance the brake and the clutch at every single stoplight just to keep the engine from stalling out.
Okay, so now imagine trying to drive that heavily compromised car through, aggressive rush hour traffic.
Oh, that would be a nightmare.
You're surrounded by thousands of people who are just blindly cruising along in their fully automatic self-driving vehicles.
Yeah, they have no idea.
Exactly. They are completely oblivious to the massive, monumental amount of calculation and physical effort you're burning through just to maintain the exact same speed as them.
And it wouldn't just be physically tiring, right? The cognitive load would be absolutely staggering.
You would burn through your mental fuel incredibly fast because you're constantly scanning, constantly calculating, constantly compensating for the systems that just aren't there anymore.
And that invisible, constant, completely exhausting effort, that is the daily reality of ataxia.
It really is. The source material captures this perfectly.
So today we are tearing up the normal rulebook. We're looking at how to survive a 24-hour cycle when your internal autopilot is permanently broken.
And when we talk about this rhythm of life, the immediate societal assumption is often quite superficial.
Oh, totally. People hear rhythm and they just think it means going slower.
Right. They picture someone walking at a reduced speed or maybe taking an extra nap.
But the sources make it explicitly clear that for someone with ataxia, rhythm is this intricate, highly advanced system of resource management.
It is essentially energy economics. It's about how you distribute your energy when you choose to execute specific tasks and how much you demand of your central nervous system.
So let's dive into the biology of that energy economics. Like, why is energy such a finite currency in ataxia?
Well, the brain is usually incredibly efficient.
Right, I want to upgrade the metaphor here a bit. Let's look at a healthy, non-ataxic brain. It is essentially a massive, perfectly optimized Amazon fulfillment warehouse.
Oh, I like this. A warehouse.
Yeah. So when you want to execute a movement like walking to the kitchen or picking up a cup of coffee, your conscious brain just clicks order.
And the cerebellum takes over from there.
Exactly. The cerebellum acts like the warehouse's highly advanced robotics system. It automatically finds the item, packages it, and ships the movement out to your muscles flawlessly.
It happens in milliseconds. And it costs almost zero conscious energy.
But in ataxia, that automated robotic system is severely compromised or even completely shut down.
The cerebellum is no longer processing those subconscious motor commands efficiently.
So instead of an army of efficient robots, the ataxic brain has to rely on the conscious cortex.
Which is not designed for that job at all.
Right. It's like having a single, overwhelmed warehouse worker who has to take a clipboard, manually run down every single aisle of this massive warehouse, find the specific muscle commands, load them onto a cart, and physically push them to the loading dock.
And the movement still happens, right? The cup of coffee gets picked up.
Yes. But the amount of energy, the sheer cellular ATP required to execute that exact same outcome is magnified by a factor of 100.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize the neurological tax. We really should break down the mechanism of that tax a bit more.
Please do. I mean, what's actually happening at the cellular level?
So the brain normally consumes about 20% of the body's total energy supply, right? Despite only making up about 2% of the body's weight.
That's a huge ratio.
It is. And it uses this energy primarily in the form of glucose and adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, to fire electrical signals across synapses.
Okay, so that's the basic fuel.
Right. Now, when the cerebellum's highly efficient automated pathways are damaged, the brain doesn't just give up. It relies on neuroplasticity.
It reroutes the signal.
Exactly. It reroutes them through the cerebral cortex, forcing the conscious thinking part of your brain to micromanage your motor functions.
So the prefrontal cortex, which is supposed to be doing things like solving complex math problems or holding a deep conversation, is suddenly forced to dedicate massive amounts of electrical signaling just to make sure your left foot clears the rug.
Yes. And the conscious cortex is terribly inefficient at this. It requires significantly more electrical signaling to coordinate a movement consciously than subconsciously.
So you're basically flooring the gas pedal just to move an inch.
Basically. This massive increase in synaptic firing rapidly depletes the local reserves of ATP and neurotransmitters in the brain. It is a biological drain.
So it's not just psychological fatigue.
Not at all. It is a profound cellular depletion of the actual resources required to keep your body upright and moving.
Wow. And this brings up a quote from the patient testimonies in Paco Oliva's material that genuinely made me stop in my tracks.
Which one? There are so many good ones.
It's the one where the patient said, "It's not that the ataxia gets worse. It's that I run out of resources to compensate for it."
Oh, yes. That is such a vital distinction.
I want to pause and dissect that for a moment because that is a massive paradigm shift. I run out of resources to compensate. I mean, if you are a patient, that single sentence changes the entire narrative of what a bad day actually is.
It profoundly alters the internal monologue. Many patients, especially those newly diagnosed, experience sheer terror when their symptoms suddenly spike at, say, 3:00 p.m.
Right. They stumble, their speech slurs.
And their immediate thought is, the disease is accelerating, I am getting worse today.
Which would create a huge amount of panic and anxiety.
Of course. But Paco Oliva's material reframes this entirely. The disease isn't rapidly progressing on a Tuesday afternoon. Your biological battery has simply hit 0%.
The neurological debt has been called in.
Neurological debt, I think that's the perfect term for it.
Yeah, because if you spend more energy than your brain can regenerate, you go into debt. And your brain forces you to pay it back by shutting down your capacity to compensate.
Your conscious control drops, and the physical failures, the stumbles, the clumsiness inevitably increase.
So if this biological debt is so clear and the physiological mechanics are so undeniable, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I imagine the temptation to just push through the fatigue is completely overwhelming. Do patients realize they're accumulating this debt in the moment? Or does the reality of it only hit them later when the system finally crashes?
In my experience, and based on the sources, the reality is usually the latter. And it's driven by a really powerful psychological force, grief.
grief over what they've lost.
Exactly. This leads us to what the sources identify as the great trap, the trap of the old
The
normal.
old normal, yeah, that makes sense.
When someone is diagnosed with a progressive condition like ataxia, their entire identity is challenged. I mean, for decades, they have operated under a specific set of rules.
They had a pace, a rigid timetable, heavy demands.
Right, and a baseline of daily activity that fundamentally defined who they were. Letting go of that isn't just a physical adjustment, it is a profound mourning process.
So the immediate reaction is often denial. The attempt to live as if the ataxia simply doesn't exist.
Yes, you try to force that single warehouse worker with the clipboard to work at the exact same speed as the old automated robotic system.
And it leads directly, predictably,
Yeah.
to absolute system overload.
Complete overload. When you are constantly trying to match a rhythm that your body can no longer physically sustain, you strip away all your margins.
You're constantly operating in a deficit.
Your day ceases to be something you navigate with intention. It just becomes this relentless, chaotic series of reactions. You're just putting out biological fires from the moment you wake up.
But I want to push back on this a little bit, or at least try to represent the struggling listener here.
Okay, play devil's advocate.
It's so easy for us to sit here and say, just abandon your old normal, find your rhythm. But society doesn't pause for your neurological debt.
No, it certainly doesn't.
We live in a world that is built for automation. It rewards speed, it demands multitasking, and it worships relentless productivity.
The pressure is immense.
Exactly. If you are at an office job or if you're just trying to keep up with your kids at a park, society is moving at 100 miles an hour. If you try to adopt a fundamentally different pace, the friction is just huge.
It creates an exhausting loop of comparisons.
You start feeling like you're always trailing behind, right? Always the one holding things up.
That friction is incredibly real, and the sources from Ataxia Comunidad don't shy away from the psychological toll it takes. It breeds immense frustration, high irritability, and just a pervasive, heavy feeling of constant failure.
And there is another powerful quote from the material that perfectly captures this friction, I think.
Oh, the one about sustaining the body?
Yes. I'm not worse. I am living above what my body can sustain.
Such a powerful realization.
The suffering isn't just coming from the physical symptoms of ataxia. It's coming from the agonizing clash between the body's actual physiological capacity and the mind's stubborn, societally conditioned demands.
And that external pressure often forces people to abandon whatever internal rhythm they were trying to build, which only accelerates the battery drain.
It is a totally vicious cycle. You feel guilty for being slow, so you rush.
Because you rush, you deplete your ATP.
And because you deplete your ATP, you stumble,
And then because you stumble, you feel embarrassed, so you try to push through it even harder.
which drains the battery completely, leading to a severe fall.
Recognizing this exact cycle is the critical first step toward autonomy. You have to see the trap of the old normal to step out of it.
You have to acknowledge that trying to keep pace with a hyper-automated society is a losing battle when your internal automation is broken.
It's hard, but it's essential.
If this feeling of clashing rhythms resonates with you, if you are constantly apologizing to your friends or family for holding things up, or if you feel that deep internal shame because you can't keep up with the pace you used to maintain, I want you to do something right now.
It's so important to communicate this.
Yes. Send this specific audio clip to your family. Send it to your friends. Let Paco Oliva's insights and this explanation of neurological debt explain what you haven't had the energy to say yourself.
That's a great idea.
And I want to explicitly direct you to the Ataxia Comunidad's YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook pages. Go there and leave a comment about your experience with this exact friction.
The community there is amazing.
It really is a safe haven. It's always open to new proposals and initiatives, and honestly, sharing the reality of this societal friction is how we build a stronger, more understanding community.
It is so vital to externalize that struggle because keeping it hidden only compounds the cognitive load we were just talking about.
Okay, so let's transition into the practical application. If society won't pause, and if the old normal is a trap, how do you actually take control of your 24 hours?
How do you survive the day?
Exactly. Well, the sources provide a highly optimized, real-world daily blueprint for living with ataxia. And I'm going to use my catchphrase here. Here's where it gets really interesting.
It really does. This is the functional treatment.
And I want to slow down our pacing right here. If you're listening, really let this structure sink in. We are moving from theory to practical application. Let's start with the morning.
The morning is, biologically speaking, your best moment.
Assuming you actually slept well.
Right. Assuming a night of relatively restorative sleep, this is the peak of your energy and your neurological control. The neurotransmitter pools have been replenished.
The biological battery is as charged as it is going to get for the next 24 hours.
Exactly. But the blueprint emphasizes a massive caveat right off the bat.
You cannot just jump out of bed and start your day.
No, the initial awakening is critical. And the quote from the source here is very blunt. If I get up fast, I start the day badly.
It's practically a guarantee. But why? Like, what is the actual mechanism behind that? I really want to understand why a fast wake-up ruins the entire day.
To understand the mechanism, we have to look at the autonomic nervous system.
Okay, lay it on me.
When you transition from lying down flat to standing vertically, gravity immediately pulls a significant volume of your blood down into your legs and abdomen.
Makes sense. Gravity does its thing.
In a healthy nervous system, baroreceptors, which are basically these tiny pressure sensors in your blood vessels, they detect this drop in blood pressure instantly.
And they send a signal to the brain.
Exactly, a lightning-fast signal. And the brain immediately triggers the autonomic nervous system to constrict the blood vessels in your legs and increase your heart rate, pushing the blood back up to your brain.
And this happens so fast you never even notice it.
Precisely. But in ataxia, particularly in forms that involve autonomic dysfunction or generalized neural delay, that system lags.
The signals are delayed.
Yes. The blood vessels don't constrict fast enough. The heart rate doesn't adjust immediately. This results in something called orthostatic hypotension, a sudden, severe drop in blood pressure to the brain.
And when the brain is temporarily starved of oxygenated blood, you experience immediate dizziness, lightheadedness, and a profound loss of equilibrium.
And for someone with ataxia, whose balance is already severely compromised, adding acute dizziness right out of the gate is just catastrophic.
It essentially forces the brain to spend massive amounts of energy trying to recalibrate spatial awareness and regain balance before you've even taken your first real step.
You're draining like 10% of your daily battery just trying to stand up.
Which is exactly why the blueprint demands a slow wake-up. You have to give your delayed autonomic nervous system the time it needs to process the transition.
Spending time simply resting in bed, consciously breathing, and maybe moving your legs while lying down,
Yeah.
it signals to the brain that a postural change is coming.
And you're manually booting up the systems.
Right. You sit on the edge of the bed for a minute, allowing the blood pressure to stabilize halfway. Only then do you slowly stand.
Okay, so you're up, you're stable. Once you are upright, the next critical step in the blueprint is fueling that system correctly.
The functional breakfast.
Yes. The material highlights the absolute necessity of this. It explicitly states you must prioritize protein and stable, complex energy sources while strictly avoiding fast sugars.
The sugar rule is huge.
Right, but why is the sugar aspect so uniquely critical for someone with ataxia? I mean, most people get a little sleepy after eating a donut, but for an ataxia patient, the stakes seem much, much higher.
The stakes are significantly higher because of how conscious motor control relies on blood glucose.
Okay, break that down for us.
When you consume fast sugars like pastries, sweetened cereals, or, heavy syrups, your blood glucose levels spike rapidly.
And your body reacts to that spike.
Yes, your pancreas panics and releases a massive surge of insulin to pull that sugar out of the blood and into your cells. But because of the massive insulin release, your blood sugar doesn't just return to normal, it plunges way below baseline.
Oh, reactive hypoglycemia.
Exactly. The dreaded sugar crash.
But remember our earlier discussion about the warehouse worker? The ataxic brain is relying on the conscious cerebral cortex to manually coordinate every single movement.
And the cerebral cortex is an absolute glutton for glucose.
It requires a steady, uninterrupted stream of energy to maintain focus and execute motor commands, right?
Precisely. When you experience a sudden hypoglycemic crash, the prefrontal cortex loses its primary fuel source. Its processing speed just plummets.
So a sugar crash isn't just making them sleepy. It is literally turning off the conscious pathways they rely on to stay upright.
A severe sugar crash can directly lead to a physical fall. The brain simply doesn't have the metabolic fuel to execute the complex compensation strategies required for balance. So a functional breakfast, focusing on proteins, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates like oats, ensures a slow, steady release of glucose into the bloodstream. It provides a stable fuel source for the brain throughout the entire morning.
That makes total physiological sense.
Sure.
Okay, so we've woken up slowly, allowing the autonomic nervous system to calibrate. We fueled the brain with stable, slow-release energy. Now we enter what the blueprint calls the main block of the day.
This is the golden window.
Because your energy, your neurotransmitter levels, and your physical control are at their absolute peak right now, this is the window for your heaviest lifting.
This is when you schedule your physiotherapy. This is when you do your exercise.
If you have mentally taxing work, complex bureaucratic tasks, or significant social activities, this is where they belong. You aggressively front-load the day.
It's a direct application of energy economics. You spend your most valuable currency, your high-energy hours, on the tasks that require the most neurological budget.
Because you just don't put off a difficult physical task until 4:00 p.m.
Right, because by 4:00 p.m., you will literally not have the cellular resources to afford it.
But, even during this highly productive morning block, the blueprint introduces a step that I find fascinating and, frankly, incredibly difficult to implement.
You're talking about the mid-morning adjustment.
Yes, the material states that around midday, even if you're having a fantastic day and feeling great, you must take a preventative pause. You must stop, hydrate, and perhaps have a small snack before you actually feel tired.
It's non-negotiable.
I really want to challenge the practicality of this, though. How on earth do you do that in the real world?
It's incredibly tough, I know.
If I'm in a job, or if I am deep in a flow state working on a project, my instinct and society's training is to just keep working until I hit a wall. Stopping when I feel perfectly fine feels deeply counterintuitive.
It is entirely counterintuitive to how we are socially conditioned, which is why it requires immense discipline. But from a neurological standpoint, as you said, it is a non-negotiable survival tactic.
Because if you wait
until you feel the heavy fatigue, the biological damage is already done.
Okay, what do you mean by damage in this context?
I mean that the neurotransmitter pools in the motor cortex have been depleted past a critical threshold. The lactic acid has already built up in the overcompensating muscles.
So you've already hit the wall.
Once you hit that wall of profound fatigue, the efficiency of your movement plummets, your risk of injury skyrockets, and crucially, it takes exponentially longer to recover.
Right, if you drain the battery to 1%, it might take hours of sleep to get it back.
But if you take a preventative pause when the battery is still at, say, 60%, just stopping for 15 minutes to hydrate, close your eyes, and reduce the sensory input, you allow the brain to clear metabolic waste and slightly replenish its immediate energy stores.
You are smoothing out the curve of your energy drain.
Exactly. You're preventing that sudden, steep, catastrophic drop in performance later in the day.
It's like pulling your car over to let the engine cool down before the radiator boils over, rather than just driving until the engine seizes and you're stranded on the side of the highway.
That's a perfect analogy. It is active preservation versus passive reaction.
Okay, so we've successfully capitalized on our peak morning hours, we've front-loaded the heavy tasks, and we've forced ourselves to take that difficult but necessary preventative pause at midday.
We're doing great.
But as the sun begins to set, the entire strategy has to shift. We have to completely abandon the mindset of productivity and fully embrace a mindset of preservation.
The afternoon shift.
Yeah. If the morning is perfectly optimized, why does the entire system still predictably collapse around 4:00 p.m.?
Well, the afternoon is where the vast majority of people struggle the most.
Despite the perfect morning.
Yes. Despite your best efforts in the morning, the physiological reality of the afternoon for someone with ataxia is just unavoidable. You have lower overall energy, a marked increase in clumsiness, and a significantly reduced capacity to react to unexpected obstacles.
The battery is dropping below 30%, and the smartphone is automatically dimming the screen and shutting down background apps just to keep the core operating system running.
That's exactly what's happening. And that biological reality requires a massive shift in how you evaluate your own success for the day.
You are no longer competing with yourself.
No, you are no longer trying to check big items off a to-do list or prove your productivity to anyone. You are simply managing what little energy is left in the reserve tank.
Shifting the goalposts. I think that is one of the most vital psychological tools in this entire blueprint.
It really is.
It means actively, intentionally reducing demands. You stick to the simplest possible tasks. You choose activities with the lowest physical risk.
And you completely eliminate the concept of rushing from your vocabulary.
Oh, absolutely. And you take much more frequent pauses, again, even if you aren't feeling completely exhausted yet.
This leads into a concept from the sources that we really must emphasize heavily. The late afternoon is classified as the critical zone.
The critical zone. It sounds ominous, but based on the physiology we've discussed, it is incredibly accurate.
It is the period of highest statistical risk for falls, injuries, and severe physical failures.
Let's look at the mechanics of why that is.
Well, throughout the day, your muscles have been working overtime to compensate for the lack of cerebellar control, right?
Mhm.
They are physically exhausted.
And concurrently, your cerebral cortex is suffering from massive cognitive fatigue.
Its ability to process spatial awareness and send rapid correction signals is severely degraded. Furthermore, in many forms of ataxia, proprioception, the body's ability to sense its location, movements, and actions in space is impaired.
So when your foot catches on the edge of a rug at 9:00 a.m., what actually happens?
At 9:00 a.m., your visual cortex sees the stumble, your delayed proprioceptive system eventually registers the trip, and your relatively fresh cerebral cortex fires a massive high-energy emergency signal to your other leg to shoot forward and catch your weight.
You stumble, but you stay upright. You had a margin of error.
Exactly. And what happens when that exact same foot catches on the exact same rug at 5:00 p.m. in the critical zone?
That's the terrifying part.
At 5:00 p.m., the visual cortex registers the stumble, but the cognitive processing is sluggish. The proprioceptive signal is even more delayed because the neural pathways are just exhausted.
And when the brain finally tries to send that high-energy emergency signal to the other leg,
The ATP reserves simply aren't there to fire the synapse fast enough. The leg doesn't move in time. The margin for error is entirely gone. You fall.
the quote from the patient testimony here is so sobering, and it perfectly validates that physiological breakdown. It's when I trip the most, and when I have the least margin.
That word margin is everything.
In the afternoon, you are operating with zero margin.
Which is why the blueprint emphatically warns against undertaking complex tasks or accepting unnecessary risks during this specific window.
Right, this is not the time to decide to organize the top shelf of your closet.
Definitely not. This is not the time to carry heavy bags of groceries up a flight of stairs or, walk the dog on an uneven trail in the woods. You must prioritize safety above all else.
I really want to pause the analysis right here and speak directly to you, the listener.
This is crucial.
If you or a loved one have been struggling with late afternoon falls or that overwhelming, crushing 5:00 p.m. exhaustion, this specific information about the critical zone is vital for your daily safety.
Please share this deep dive.
Yes. Share the link on YouTube, clip this specific segment about the critical zone for Instagram, or post the episode on Facebook. Helping someone identify their critical zone and understand the physiological reason behind their late-day clumsiness can literally prevent a serious, life-altering injury.
Knowledge is protective here.
And again, Ataxia Comunidad is an open door. If you have found unique strategies that help you survive the afternoon slump, maybe a specific resting posture, or a way you communicate your limits to your family, go to their social media and share them.
We want to hear them.
Your lived experience could be the exact piece of the puzzle someone else needs to stay safe.
Recognizing the danger of the critical zone and navigating it safely brings us to the end of the day. But the blueprint doesn't end when the sun goes down.
No, the evening isn't just the finish line you cross and collapse over.
The focus turns entirely to setting up tomorrow for success.
Right. Nighttime recovery. Because nighttime isn't just about passively closing your eyes. It is the active, deliberate preparation for the next 24 hours.
The routine of the wind down is critical. The sources suggest starting with a very light dinner.
Let's look at the biology of why. Digestion is an incredibly energy-intensive process, isn't it?
Oh, massively. It requires massive blood flow to the gastrointestinal tract and significant autonomic nervous system activity.
If you eat a heavy, complex meal late in the evening, your body is forced to redirect massive amounts of energy toward digestion, which completely disrupts the architecture of restorative sleep.
Your core body temperature stays elevated, and your heart rate remains higher, preventing you from slipping into deep delta wave sleep.
So you are basically forcing your body to work a night shift when it should be repairing the damage from the day.
Exactly. Beyond a late dinner, we also need to focus heavily on mental disconnection.
Lowering the cognitive load.
Yes. The brain has been hyperactive all day, consciously managing every single movement. In the evening, you must actively reduce stimuli to allow the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, to take over.
This means turning off bright screens, avoiding high-stress conversations, and literally lowering the volume of your environment.
You are creating the conditions necessary for the overtaxed nervous system to finally power down. Maintaining a stable, predictable sleep schedule is paramount.
What actually happens in the brain during sleep that makes it so critical for ataxia patients?
During deep sleep, the brain activates the glymphatic system, which is essentially a waste clearance system.
A nightly flush.
Right, it flushes out the neurotoxins and metabolic waste products like amyloid beta that accumulate during waking hours.
And because the ataxic brain is working so much harder during the day, it generates significantly more metabolic waste.
Therefore, it requires highly efficient, uninterrupted sleep to clear that waste and replenish the neurotransmitter pools for the next day.
The patient quote here makes the stakes of that process very clear. If I sleep badly, the next day, everything costs twice as much.
It's a brutal reality.
A bad night's sleep isn't just an inconvenience. It means starting the next day with the battery already severely compromised. Your margin of error is erased before you even get out of bed.
Precisely. Now, if we zoom out and look at this entire daily structure, the slow, calibrated morning wake-up, the functional fueling, the preventative midday pauses, the cautious navigation of the afternoon critical zone, and the active nighttime recovery, it all synthesizes down into three unshakable principles.
The sources define these as the three pillars of living with ataxia. Let's clearly define those pillars so listeners can anchor their daily routines to them.
Okay, pillar number 1, anticipation. You must never wait to be tired to rest. You must never wait to fail to stop. You must always be one step ahead of your fatigue, recognizing that by the time you actually feel the exhaustion, the biological debt is already incurred.
Got it. Pillar number 2, energy distribution.
Do not spend all your resources at once. You have to meticulously budget your energy across the entire day, pacing yourself and shifting your goalposts so you don't hit absolute zero before the sun goes down.
And pillar number 3, constant adaptation. This one requires a profound level of honesty with yourself, I think.
It does. You must acknowledge the biggest error of all, which is trying to make every single day identical.
Let me play devil's advocate here again. Human beings crave routine, right? We want to know that if we follow steps A, B, and C, we will get result D. Why can't every day be identical if you follow the blueprint perfectly?
Because the underlying pathology of ataxia is not static, and the variables of human biology are just infinite. You cannot control the barometric pressure. You cannot control a subtle shift in your immune system fighting off a minor cold. And you cannot always control the quality of your sleep.
Some days the biological battery just holds a better charge than others.
Exactly. You must wake up, assess how you actually feel in that specific moment, and dynamically adjust the blueprint based on that reality. If you wake up and the battery is only at 60%, you immediately drop the hardest tasks from your main block. You adapt.
And when you actually apply these 3 pillars, when you truly commit to this rhythm and stop fighting your physiological reality, the payoff is incredible.
It changes everything.
You experience fewer falls, you regain a sense of physical and emotional control. The daily grinding frustration of the old normal drops significantly.
And ultimately, ironically, by slowing down, doing less, and resting more, you achieve far greater true autonomy.
That is the beautiful, undeniable paradox of this entire approach. As the patient testimony brilliantly states, I don't do more things, but I do the things I do better.
I love that quote. It's so true.
So we've gone through the deep neurology of ATP depletion, the functional blueprint of the day, and the psychological traps of societal friction. So what does this all mean?
What's the ultimate takeaway?
What is the ultimate takeaway from Paco Oliva's material? It means that managing your rhythm isn't about surrendering to the disease.
No, not at all.
It isn't about limiting your life, giving up, or settling for less. It is about perfectly, efficiently, and intelligently utilizing exactly what you have every single day.
The final quote from the material sums it up perfectly. When you respect your rhythm, your body stops being an enemy and starts being an ally.
This profound shift in perspective raises a deeply important question, and it provides a final thought I want our listeners to really mull over.
The sources mention something incredibly striking about this. This rhythm isn't imposed by the disease, it is taught by it.
Taught by it. Okay, I'm listening.
If you look at the general population, most people walk through life on absolute, mindless autopilot. They are completely disconnected from their physical form, ignoring fatigue, eating poorly, and pushing themselves until something fundamentally breaks.
Yeah, that's the societal norm.
But if ataxia forces you to become an absolute master of your own energy economics, if it demands that you anticipate your needs before they arise, forces you to understand the intricate mechanics of your nervous system, and requires you to deeply, constantly listen to the subtle whispers of your own body. Could this highly conscious, deeply intentional way of navigating a 24-hour cycle actually be a more advanced, mindful way of living?
Wow.
What if true autonomy isn't about the frantic speed at which you move through the world, but the profound, quiet self-awareness of how you move?
That is a stunning way to look at it. It entirely flips the script.
It really does.
It transforms a brutal daily struggle into an absolute masterclass in physical mindfulness. It takes the broken manual car and turns the driver into a master mechanic.
I couldn't have said it better.
To the entire Ataxia Comunidad channel, and to absolutely everyone listening today, I want to say a massive heartfelt thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for letting us dive into this profound reality with you. There is an immense, undeniable beauty and benefit in belonging to a community like this one.
It's life-changing.
When people like Paco Oliva and all of you who share your stories in the comments open up about these real, firsthand experiences, it genuinely changes lives. It shatters the isolation.
It provides a tangible, functional roadmap for people who are navigating in the dark.
It proves, unequivocally, that absolutely no one has to navigate the complex, exhausting reality of this disease alone. The shared knowledge of a community is the ultimate power.
It truly, truly is.
So, one last time, I want to invite you to actively participate. Like, subscribe, and share this journey across the Ataxia Comunidad YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook pages.
Please do.
Keep this vital conversation alive. Keep sharing your rhythms, your daily struggles, your ingenious strategies, and your hard-won victories.
Let's keep this incredible community growing, learning, and supporting one another.
Remember, you might not be driving an automatic anymore, but you are the one in the driver's seat. You have the blueprint, you know the mechanics, and you know exactly how to handle the road ahead.
We are so proud to be part of your journey.
Until next time, take care of your rhythm and take care of yourselves.